Not be surprised that when there's infiltration in any political party,
And welcome back. This is K24 this morning, looking at the Constitution at 10 at this particular point in time. Is this the time we go for change? And I know, just look at the pieces that probably were left out, try and deal with those moving forward. That's a discussion we're having right here in studio. We want you to be part of this conversation. You can get me at I am Jeff Mote or at K24 TV. Edwin Motieri getting me at I am Jeff Mote saying, if the Constitution is implemented, some people will not run for presidency. That's what this is all about. Bobo Wino saying, tukona mashida kubwa kuliko constitution. We're talking about jobs. That's what the youth really are about. Mary Warware is saying the political class are too selfish and greedy. If you acknowledge that reality, we'll realize why they're all talking about the constitution right now when we are hungry. Okay, Mary, I hear you. Keep those tweets coming in. You can get me at I am Jeff Mote. I have a power panel in studio to discuss this. In studio, Gabriel Muthuma, Oliver Karori, who are weighing in on this particular conversation as well. We have Abdikadir Mohammed, who's getting us on the phone. He's in Somalia right now. We have also Dr. Kuro Aukot, who was also part of this particular process on this conversation as well. Dr. Aukot, we spoke to you just before we took the break. Let me get to Abdikadir on this one, because we're standing at a critical point right now. And as you see from just the sample of tweets that we are taking, most Kenyans are talking about socio-economic change. They know that there's a document right there, out there, that should be dealing with their issues, but it's more bread and butter. How do we move closer to that, even at this particular moment right now, Abdikadir?
Yeah, thanks. I think they're absolutely right, and that's really where the pain is right now for Kenyans. So because of the COVID, because of the lockup of the economy, because of the earlier economic challenges we had, and because of corruption, that is where the rubber meets the road, and that is what should be focusing our minds right now. The president has done very well in terms of what he has done over the last few months in addressing the COVID, in addressing a number of these issues. But that's really where the focus should be at this point in time, not whether we'll have 2 or 3 prime ministers, not whether we can twinkle with this article or the other. Our problems are glaring and they are clear. They are economic, they are social, they are governance related. They don't require changes. Of course, if you change, you can improve, but really, primarily what they require is implementation, it is execution, it's really working for the Kenyans. We already have many politicians in office. We have a government in office. We have a very expensive civil service. What we need to do is translate the power, the mandate, the authority we have to their benefit, so that they can see the benefits in terms of jobs, in terms of healthcare, in terms of infrastructure. Those are the things. And we have 2 years to the elections, literally 2 years to the elections. That's like half of the mandate. We really should not be focusing on what happens 2 years from now in the elections, but really what we do for the Kenyans now.
And a body that probably will be able to do that in terms of just making sure the proper legislation is in place, rather, Abdikadir, is Parliament. But you have a Parliament talking about every single time executive overreach. You've spoken about this as well. How do we actually have this doctrine of separation of powers put in place? Because on paper, we do know how it should work. But on the ground, the reality, the parliamentarians always complaining that the executive is interfering in their work, so there can't be a proper check and balance and accountability. How do we sort that out practically right now?
Well, that is really an excuse. That's really an excuse. The members of our National Assembly, the members of our county assemblies, the members of our Senate, those ladies and gentlemen have their work cut out for them. If you slip on your mandate, if you decide not to do your work, nobody's going to do the work for you, and certainly the executive will not do your work. The executive will be happy if you do not oversight, because really oversight is inconvenient, even when it is meant well and even when we know it is supposed to push back. Checks and balances are inconvenient. They are an inconvenience for the executive to do its work. Even when the executive is doing its work well, you need to still check it. That is why you see the executive complain from the judiciary about the judiciary and the fact that they are slowing down our processes because somebody feels their right has been violated and they go to court. These are supposed to be inconvenient. So I think the people who have dropped the ball, if we are supposed to put the finger on one institution. It is our parliament. They have a huge role in terms of budget. Budget is a making of that institution. If you have a big problem with oversight, oversight is the function of the legislature, whether it is health or any of the, if it is pilferage in the counties, which is really huge, it is the function of the Senate. So these good ladies and gentlemen, who we pay very well and who we've honored and respected with our votes and our mandate, those are the ladies and gentlemen really who are right now who have dropped the ball and really have done us bad.
Bring in Dr. Okot on this conversation as well. Let's look at the Bill of Rights, Daktari, because when you look at what is in the Kenyan Constitution, really, I mean, one of the leading examples globally in terms of a Bill of Rights and how it should be put down constitutionally therein. But you look at how it's been practiced, how it's been enforced, and there's a lot of want there. You look at cases like, let's look at the case of Miguna, what happened in that particular instance, and people used that as political fodder for the day right there. But then it comes back to haunt us right here when the same people who thought it was good then for the goose, some senators in point, even Murkomen right there, now on the receiving end of this. How do we get to a point where we actually hold this executive accountable for what they do to the citizenry at large? Okay, Daktari, I think there's a small audio hit right there as my technical team tries to sort that out with the audio on Daktari. I'll get back to him on that particular one. Let me come to studio. Gabriel, Muthuma, Oliver Karori in studio as well. I'll pose that question right here because Oliver said it's not about a bold constitution, it's about bold implementation. Right. When you have, the head of state, the head of government talking about this being the time, have we implemented as much as we can so that we start, changing this constitution? When you talk about how the executive has dealt with such issues, demolition of property, even with court orders restraining the government from doing that, right. We don't need to change the constitution. We just need a government that follows what's in the law.
Yeah, and that's why I was telling you when it comes to implementation, there are so many things we failed. Look at our papers this morning. What are they talking about? Graft. Mm-hmm. Our constitution has very good chapters that deal with graft and what to do thereafter, right? Even though right now, I mean, this to me is good news. When I see, graft family losing, getting it back, it shows me that we have the ability to do it. And that's why I'm saying this to me is very good news, that people who thought, or who made it business as usual to eat from the public coffers are now starting to, to see that it's not business as usual. So if we are able to continue, with such, such mannerisms of ensuring that nobody takes that which belongs to the public, and if we are able to emphasize on those laws that it is not only for today and tomorrow, but for the future, I think we will inculcate, what you call a culture.
Right.
And so it will become a culture that, hey, this belongs to the public. These monies are not for me. I know at the end of the day, I will pay for what I am doing. That is the kind of mentality that we need to go forth with. But then again, I don't know whether when it comes to implementation, whether it's sometimes we get to a certain place and we become hands-off. Because honestly, like Dr. Okuro said, and also I think Wakili also insinuated the very same thing. Our constitution is quite progressive. And if we are talking about changing it now, what are we going to change? In what respect? So that it can be, or it can resort to what? I think that is a conversation that we need to start talking about. If you look at the 9 points, that's why I keep saying when the BBI came out, the 9 points, everybody agreed with the 9 points. You know why? Because they were talking about the ills that were facing us at that particular point. Today, we are also faced by the very same ills. When you're talking about things like national ethos, how to deal with corruption, devolution, and what have you, having or getting away from the rhythmic 5-year, every election, we have a rhythm, we have almost a near, rhythm that dictates violence. How do we get out of that? All right. So if these are the things that we are going to talk about, Jeff, The issue of changing the constitution then will not be a hard thing, because we are going to bring Kenyans on board to say these are the parcels of issues that we are dealing with at this particular point. But when they are changed, does it stop at that, or does it mean that we are going to fight, you know, to implement them? So the implementation process is actually quite as heavy as the process of changing the constitution.
Okay, let me get back. Dr. Aukot, I think we sorted out his audio issue. Dr. Arif, you can hear me on this. So talking about, you know, when it comes to the Bill of Rights, really a leading light around the, you know, the world in terms of how this should be put down on paper. But we've seen this, you know, being trampled on over and over again by the executive. And even Kenyans wonder, okay, fine, we are powerless against this government, yet in essence, a constitution is actually like a contract between a government and its people. How do we sort this out?
It is true. The constitution is a social contract between the people and the state. And therefore, and it also captures the aspirations of the people of Kenya. Speaking of the Bill of Rights, you will recall that we came from a constitution that only recognized one particular regime of rights, the civil and political rights under the old constitution. So when we were doing this constitution, the 2010 constitution, we expanded that Bill of Rights into all three generations of rights: the civil and political, socio-economic rights, and cultural rights, or what we call group rights. So, of course, even became specific, for example, on the issue to do with right to health, right to water, group rights such as the elderly, women, youth, gender, and all that. But, like I said, you can write yourself the most beautiful constitution, even in the flowerest of languages, but if you put a cow in charge of it, it may not even be worth the paper it's written on. And that's where the challenge we have in Kenya today. And honestly, I would like to convince Gabriel and Oliver that if I was to rewrite Kenya's constitution today, I'll probably even be very prescriptive. Why do I say that? Because look at the political culture in Kenya we have today. We cannot entrust any of these politicians, perhaps except me and others, who believe in this constitution, to implement it. Because we have seen for the last 10 years that people do not even respect the constitution to begin with. President Uhuru Kenyatta yesterday said that the constitution was meant to be a ceasefire. I mean, honestly, a ceasefire, so that's why for them they are not implementing it, because they don't believe in it. That's why corruption has become the order of the day. That's why leaders, Uhuru Kenyatta and Raila Odinga, have taken over the institutions of parliament. So for me, I would say, we need to look at what benefits accrue to the Kenyan if we amend the constitution. Again, this is not to promote Punguza Mizigo Kenya, but I will challenge Kenyans to look at the socio-economic benefits of our proposals in reviewing this constitution today. And I'm saying this, I wish we can amend this constitution before 2022 so that people do not hijack it again. Because if you look at the political maneuvering and posturing that's going on in Kenya today, it's more about interests. It has nothing to do with the people of Kenya. It has nothing to do with, for example, ensuring Kenyans enjoy services at the very ward level. Last year, when I went to promote Punguza Mizigo Bill, I only managed to visit 29 county assemblies. In all the 29 county assemblies, I had one single thing, one common theme, that governors are not accountable enough. They are not responsible. If an MCA is in disagreement with a governor, he is denied development in his ward. And that's why for me I'm saying, if I was to rewrite Kenya's constitution today, Jeff, I would probably say, you know what? Money should go beyond county headquarters. We need to see people enjoying health, education, security. We tick those boxes in each and every ward of Kenya. And that is the only time we can even reduce the political temperatures in our country today, especially at the national level. And therefore, I will persuade my fellow panelists to look at the benefit that comes with amending the constitution. It's not about individuals. It doesn't matter today if you amend the constitution and include the Kuru Aukot as part of the national, until you have now helped all the Turukanas because it's a tribe. That's nonsense.
I hear you on that, Dr.
I want the constitution to serve every Kenyan.
Okay.
I want every Kenyan to feel that they are Kenyans in equal measure. And that's why for me, I have proposed 10 areas. Only that we don't have time today, but I've proposed 10 reasons why we must amend the constitution now before 2022.
Let me bring back to studio to the panel that you're trying to persuade as well, Dr. Oliver. We've spoken about some of the shortcomings of this particular document and also those who are in charge of implementing this social contract. What do you feel is working for the document right now? When you reflect on those 10 years up until now, what are the gains we're having? Very quickly.
Jeff, whereas we continuously give positive criticism of this document,
Right.
we have to agree that it has widened the space. Whereas those at the center of it are trying to claw back and to take the power the people gave themselves through the Constitution. There are several other good things that came with this Constitution. Look at devolution, whereas most of the people who are implementing it, there was a problem in bundling and unbundling, the issue of funds follow functions, but it is a good idea. It has had its fair share of success. Look at even the article, my good senior, chapter 4, the one on Bill of Rights, socio-economic rights and what have you. Whereas we might not have gone the full hog of in implementing them, but at least it is already now in the buffet for Kenyans to go after them. Look at even the issue of trying to bring women to the table of leadership. It has worked well at the county assembly level, but whereas we still have a problem at the National Assembly, Senate has been a success. Now, going into the future, we need to ask ourselves, when you look at even Chapter 15 commissions, we need to ask ourselves, it is time to say, as Ekuru Oko talks about, whereas we might not agree with him on whether to amend the Constitution now or after the election, but we agree that there are things that can work better for us. Okay. If there are those commissions in Chapter 15, if they were to be merged together, they will achieve more than doing the overlapping roles they do now. Okay. There are several other things. And also we need to ask ourselves, going to the future, what are the functions of the president? When you look at how the current president operates, it is as though the Constitution 2010 brought more power to the president. At times when you see and read some of the executive orders being churned out from wherever they come from, you get a feeling that the constitutional implementation and the people implementing it are not in the same line. They are at parallels. So I think going to the future, we need to ask ourselves, Parliament needs to come at the fore and reclaim its position. Okay. The issue that we have failed in this Constitution is, one, we have failed to recognize that the three arms of government are equal, notwithstanding where each derives their power. But at the end of the day, the Constitution says all the three arms implement delegated authority, okay, either direct or indirect. Okay. So those are some of the things we need to look at. And going to the future also, we need to ask ourselves, when we talk about Article 1 of our Constitution, sovereignty, how do we discuss sovereignty of the people, of we the people, when the body that is the custodian of sovereignty is compromised? Currently, IEBC is in a state where it cannot pass Chapter 6 as an institution, because we do not know where IBC stands at the moment. And it is the custodian, the sole custodian of how we exercise our sovereignty in terms of voting. 20 months to the next election, we are not sure where we are. Look at the status of devolution. And it is because, I agree with the court, I think because of the nature of Kenyans, we need a prescriptive constitution. Right. One that is just wide open, as the one we have, might not really help Kenyans because we are extremely bright people. We have used that to subvert some things. We need to make sure that each and every benefit that Kenyans gave themselves in the Constitution accrue to them.
Let me bring in Abdikadir on this one as well. When you talk about change, Abdikadir, some people are saying when it comes to change as a country, we've changed almost everything. When there wasn't enough political space, we made it a multi-party country. When the electoral body had a problem, we went from ECK to IIEC. Now we're at IEBC. We've changed the constitution as well. But the only thing that we haven't really changed when you think about it, Abdikadir, are the main political players. And that's why it seems like this problem doesn't go away, because they're still the same players on the field. What's your take on that? You served and decided to leave the August House and not go back. Is that where the issue is, the players on the field? Hello? Abdikadir, do you hear me? Okay, seems to be an issue right there. Is our court online as well? Do you have a Kura court? Let's have Okura Okot in on this one as well, because Okot, even as we wind up, we have a couple of minutes to go before we wind this.
I am online, Jeff. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you now, loud and clear. We have a couple of minutes before we wind up.
Yes.
Some people are saying
Yes, I am online.
We've changed almost everything on this landscape, from the electoral bodies to the constitution, everything else other than the main players on the political field, and that's what needs to change. What's your take on that?
Well, you see, Jeff and my fellow panelists, the truth for the matter is this. Let's first admit that Article 255, 256, and 257 are not mere decorations in our Constitution. They are meant to give us the opportunity to look, to relook, or to review, or to amend the Constitution. To be honest with you, because of the nature of our political culture today, and I agree with Oliver here, where we are today as a country, we may have no choice but to actually be prescriptive. Let's behave like doctors. You go to a doctor, he prescribes to you a medication that you must take in the morning, in the afternoon, in the evening. It seems to me this is where Kenya has reached. But whereas we should not be stuck up on blaming the political class, let Kenyans also take responsibility. Because these leaders don't emanate from planet Mars. They come from within the social framework of Kenya today. They are our uncles, our brothers, our wives, our everything we can think of. So why are we not calling them to account? For example, when was the last time Kenyans, in the last 10 years, exercised their right of recall in Article 104? Kenyans have not done that. I can only see MCAs. MCAs are the only ones who have tried, attempted to actually impeach governors. Look at Parliament. Article 145 clearly gives parliamentarians the right to impeach a president or to a vote of no confidence. They have never done it because, we are not exercising our right. Yes, the Constitution belongs to all of us in equal measure. What saddens me today in Kenya going towards 2022 is that we are risking handing over this Constitution to the same political players. And that's why, for me, I favor to change this Constitution before 2022 so that the restrictions are tightened.
Okay.
So that whoever comes in power 2022, whether it's a Kura Okot or, I don't know, William Ruto or Raila Odinga, they do not play around with this Constitution the way we have seen them play around with it. Remember, the first chapter of the Constitution that they killed was chapter 6. When we said, Parliament shall pass legislation to bring this chapter into effect. That chapter was killed. Chapter 5, the same thing. And many, many other chapters. So, I'm sorry to say, but I think we may have to, until we change our political culture in Kenya. This thing of Mutuetu, and then Mutuetu keeps violating the Constitution, and we don't take them hold them accountable. I mean, we are actually kind of peeing on our own document that we call the Grundnorm, the social contract between us and the state.
Okay, Dr. We have 2 minutes to go, so I want parting shots even as we wind up this particular conversation. Let me start with Abdikadir Mohammed, if we do have him online now.
Yeah.
Okay, fantastic. We're winding up the conversation now, Abdikadir. What's your parting shot even as we mark 10 years of this current constitution and a possible change in the horizon?
Well, as I said, I want really to be very clear on that matter. I believe we have bigger fish to fry than constitutional amendments. I believe that we as a country have a huge potential. We have most of the laws we need. What we really need to do is deliver a good livelihood for our people, deliver this country to its promise, and we would really be spending much needed energy, resources, and pressure on things that will not be absolute priority if we look at how we can expand the top of our executives to try and accommodate a few of our senior politicians.
Okay, thank you so much for that. We leave it at that as far as it's concerned. Let me bring it back to studio as well, even as you wind up on this one. We'll have a minute or so to go on this as well. Gabriel, what's your parting shot? We are 10 years in on this. What's your take?
There's something that Dr. Yakuro has just said, and I think I'll also throw the spanner back to the works, and that is the people becoming responsible. Right. And when you're talking about a fine constitution, a progressive constitution like the one we have, we must start asking the hard questions. Somebody once said the first level of accountability is asking questions. And it's not just asking the general questions. You need to ask the hard, the heavy questions that people find hard to answer. Like, one of them is, why do we keep repeating this mistake of electing tainted leaders? You know, that must become very clear to every Kenyan, because that, to me, is my first responsibility, all right, with accountability. Okay. I need to find out. Just the other day when we were, you know, like he's saying, the first attack that they did on our constitution was on chapter 6, and justifiably so. Even when it came to the leaders who require a level of education, what happened? People started going to manufacture degrees and diplomas, and you saw this. And we allowed it to happen as the people. So when we are talking about we the people, we must be alive to this very fact that the leadership and the accountability and the responsibility are in one gunny bag. And for us to realize this, it is through asking the right questions and putting the right people in the right places.
Okay, let me bring Oliver in very quickly as we wind up. What's your parting shot today?
Jeff, with all the public plunder going on, the economic times, the locust ravaging, and the poor lack of leadership in this country, I think what we are looking at or what we are staring at is not a constitutional moment, but a revolution moment. As we celebrate Constitution at 10, we need to revolutionize the way we do things. Okay. And I think it calls upon the young, not the old. Okay. It is us who has a future to live. The old might be eating the pension, but it is us who are working on what we live for. So it is time for us to revolutionize this country. Okay. Nobody should sell you the constitutional moment thing. We need a revolution. And a generational change as well, as you put it right there. That's why we wind up the show at this particular point in time. Thank you so much, Gabriel, for making time. Oliver Karori, Dr. Kurwa, coach, also joining the conversation. I think he had that last mark and thought it was going to him on that one. It wasn't above your way, Daktari. Thank you so much for being on the show as well. That's why we wind up our newspaper review this morning and our discussion, of course, on the Constitution at 10, where we stand right now and possibly where we are going as well. But the conversation continues online. You can get me at I am Jeff Mote and at K24 TV. We take a short break right now. We are back on the other side as we get interactive. Good morning.